They held up checks, which I think is a phenomenal addition to the World Cup. But I'm guessing he just made 40 grand. Way to go, Odermatt. Welcome back to the Race Recap. In another dimension, this would be the #1 source for video analysis for World Cup ski racing. But in this universe, it's filmed in my garage and there are a few people liking it. Today we are talking about the men's GS from Val d'Isere. I woke up pretty early this morning to watch the first run and right away could tell that it was a gnarly day in Val d'Isere. The light was terrible, mostly because of a heavy cloud layer that there was. It also looked like it could be one of those cold cloud layers. Some of the moisture getting trapped in the valley and kind of socking it in and making the visibility just terrible. It was a heck of a shade of gray out there. To add to the issues, Perino said that it had snowed 2 feet in 2 weeks leading up to the race, and then later he corrected it and said that it was 2 meters of snow that it had snowed in the 2 weeks leading up to the race. They showed a snowcat out there blowing snow off of the surface. But in a situation like this, no matter what you do, no matter how much you're blowing snow off the top, no matter how many people you have out there with shovels, there's no way to get every bit of that fresh snow off of the surface, and you end up with a surface that's kind of inconsistent, where there's going to be little places where there's piles of that new snow, and it's going to react to the ski differently as if it was just one glazed, clean, injected run, which is what they like out there. So I was watching the first run, and it was pretty brutal to watch because a lot of them were certainly struggling. And when Ski Dad sees an issue, Ski Dad comes up with solutions. Here I am prototyping a battery-operated headlight. Why not be able to carry your own light down with you as you're trying to shred one of these GS courses? Proof of concept, was able to get the light working off of some batteries on the helmet, and let's see how this is going to be used. To utilize battery-operated headlights, simply put your D-size battery in this sack and this sack, and take those and shove them down into your GS suit. Run the cord down your leg. Most people go to the left, and you should be good to go out there. If the visibility is decent and you don't need as big of a battery-operated battery, you could go with C size. I prefer D. You think, Brett? Pretty good, right? Now, I did prototype a ladies version. I'm thinking for the ladies prototype.
I don't think so.
Okay. We're still working on it. Let's not dilly-dally too long here. I want to jump right into this race. I want to get through the entire second run because it was a very exciting ski race at the end of the day. It did look like the course set on the second run was a straight redress of the first run and not an actual mirroring of the first run. Perino said that it was a mirror, but I believe it was a redress. And I think that because the die lines from the first run were non-existent, and they basically were able to reuse the exact same die lines that they had first run. So I think they just redressed it, moved a lot of gates inside the groove. As a coach, I've been on a bunch of these redresses. When you have a situation with all this fresh snow falling, you have one good clean track cleared off, you do the redress and you get what you can out of the day. And I thought they did a great job of that. The second run was super entertaining. Different guys did well, but at the end of the day, good skiing is what it took to move up and have a really good day out there. Starting off on the men's side, the last one to make the second run was Alex Hofer. He was ninth on the second run. Bib 41 came out and did a pretty good job for himself. After him came Thomas Tumler. Now, Tumler had a fantastic one. He actually won the second run. He did a lot of feathering. He came down and was just light on his feet and was doing a lot of feathering as he moved through the course and just picked his way down. There was a bunch of gates where he was feathering still below the gate, which I say is usually a cardinal sin in ski racing. You don't want to be doing any of your feathering or those little chatter moves under the gate, but he was still doing it. But what he was doing was keeping himself in the fall line. He maintained speed the whole way. He didn't show that the course had any major issues, and there was actually 2 rolls that were very significant in the second run. The first was maybe a third of the way into the run, and it was kind of like a little side hill rollover, similar to the upper roll at Solden, that took a lot of people out, notably Riccardo Tontetti, and I started calling it Tontetti's roll after a while. So if you see where Tontetti went out, that's the first roll. It was kind of an issue that I'm talking about. The second roll that was an issue was the big rollover, and that came at about 1 minute 57 seconds on the second run. That's the big rollover. There was a big delay that brought him way across the hill, and then guys had to throw either a massive stiv to drop in and come through that correctly, or they chundered it and really blew a lot of speed right there. So there's two kind of problem areas that I identified throughout the run, but Toomler didn't even show any sign that those two areas were problematic. He also got to run in fantastic lighting conditions, which was a huge advantage for him. He was aggressive. He went at it. He came down minus 1.08 over Hofer and held the lead for a while. And like I said, he won the second run. So great job out there from Toomler. Leif Haugen was next up. Leif is struggling. Leif has been struggling for 2 years now. He doesn't look like he has the balance anymore. He's very awkward. Perino talked about how his hands are all over the place. What I see, though, is he hasn't been able to get his hip kind of into the slot, the good place he wants it to be for his skiing to be balanced and for it to be stable in 2 years. It looks like he's just a little back with his hip. His chest is a little too far forward and maybe inside, and that's got his balance point seemingly like too high up into his body, and he's not able to settle the balance point down into his hips and have just clean outside skis running. He's dirty. He's ragged. The second run was better. However, he's still 24th on the day, 2 mediocre runs. I hope Leif can figure it out and get back to the form he had before, but this is 2 years of this now, so we'll see. Trevor Philp was up next. He was only out by 22 hundredths before he blew out and DNF'd, and I believe that was on Tontetti's roll, but he had the goods on the top. Trevor Philp, at times, looks beautiful out there. He's fast. He had it going on, and then he went out, unfortunately. Too bad for him. Bib 38, Julian Rauchfuss. He comes down off of Toomler, ends up 22nd on the run. And then next was Patrick Feuerstein from Austria. And when he was coming on the top section, I said, holy cow, this kid is ripping. I don't know this guy. I think this maybe was the first run that I've really identified him. He's got the style of like a Zan Kranchek, but it also looks like he's maybe kind of a shorter guy in stature, kind of like a Hirscher. And he looks really, really good. I mean, that style, his skiing, the speed he was carrying, this guy could be someone to watch out for to really move up the ranks. I like what I saw from him. He was second on the second run. In places, just looked beautiful. He wore bib 70 out there second run. So how many guys on the World Cup are losing their bibs between runs? I think we saw it on the ladies' side already once this year, and now we're seeing it on the men's side. I think it's comical that you get to the highest level and you pull what is like a U14 move, which is losing your bib between runs. Up next was Giovanni Bersetti. He came down 44 hundredths out. He actually tied Feuerstein. He tied Feuerstein. He was 8th on the run, and when he came down, the light was kind of going out, and it was already apparent that the run was getting rougher and rougher. Up next, River Radamus. Riv is still skiing with the big knee brace on his knee, and I was a little concerned after watching the Beaver Creek Super Gs that the knee was not all the way there. I was concerned that the knee brace was masking a bigger issue with the knee. However, the skiing that River had out there today, especially in the second run, and some of the power turns he made, told me that that knee is all the way there. He still has the strength in his leg. He still has the touch through the leg out to the foot to the ski, and he can totally rip. Now, does that mean he's not skiing in some pain? Probably not. I mean, if you got a knee brace on, that means something's going on. But the way he went out and skied today gave me a ton of confidence that River is okay. He's as healthy as he can be, and he is ready to rip and regain that form that was 6th place in the opener. His turn going over the big roll was sick. Okay, that was one of the best turns he made all day. Huge confidence boost, I think, for him. He comes way across that delay, turns, throws out that right foot. It holds. He actually carved it back on line where I thought maybe was about to get late, and then he just kept it carving across the hill. kept his elevation on the next gate, and really just made a dynamite turn right there. That was vintage Radimus. Let's remember, River Radimus puts the rad in Radimus. And he comes down 100th up. He's got the green light. That's got to feel good. He gave the fist pump. He moved all the way to 13th, 23rd to 13th on the run. Great job from River. I think salvaging a good day. First run, maybe he wasn't fully confident there. He was bib 19. That was a disadvantage, certainly. But to move up from 23rd all the way to 13th, huge victory for Radimus. Third on the run. Great job up there. Next up, Rafael Hasser. He ends up 20th. After him, Daniel Setti. He ends up 23rd. Then came Justin Morissier. He had a big mistake going over the big roll, and I thought he would have taken him out of it. He had what would be the stiv of the season. If I could get some World Cup footage up here, that stiv would be front and center because he made a stiv on the upper part, maybe on Totetti's roll, or maybe it was before that, but that was just a thing of beauty. It was perfectly smooth. It was perfectly feathered, and then the connection was clean and pure, and it was just dynamite. It'll be easy to spot if you go back and look at it. So he comes down, he's up by 2/10. He takes the lead over River and ends up 9th on the day. I thought he was going to actually lose to River, but it's a testament to how well he's skiing that he made that big roll, or he made that big mistake going over the big roll and was able to maintain his advantage and end up 9th on the day. Great job out there from Justin Morissier. Let's take a break right now and let's go through what the different lines that are being utilized out there on the World Cup look like. So what I've tried to draw here is what a rut looks like at the end of a race run, okay? And I've color-coded it. And so there'll basically be as far out as people start the turn. And that's up here. This is the green line, okay? And people who start far out and make the turn out in here end up with a higher line or more elevation in completion. And then I drew the other extreme of what lines are, which is coming in a little tighter to the gate, certainly lower to the gate, and then doing more of the turn below the gate and certainly bellying it out. And if we could get really extreme here, and we could say that there are lines that go like this, but these are huge mistakes. This is like Adel McGrath and whoever that other guy was that was around him. But let's not worry too much about what is a giant mistake. Let's kind of hold on to what people are doing, getting through the gate clean, but this is the range of turn shapes you see coming around a gate. What you also see at the end of a course is all these little chatter lines, all these chuck holes, I call them. This is where people are starting the turn and chattering the skis on their way in to gain whatever kind of purchase they're going to gain to have whatever kind of exit they're going to have. Now, some things to notice here. The green line, which is all the way outside up here, generally doesn't start until after the rise line. So people who are really committed to being patient for the rise line, starting to turn out here, generally bring out the turn further here and have more elevation exiting the gate. In this whole range of turn, all the way from the green line to the blue line, there are any number of different ways that people are attempting to make this turn. There are roll-ups happening that are tight to the blue line. There are roll-ups happening that are tight to the green line. There are stivs happening tight to the blue, and there are stivs happening tight to the green. And as we go through, I'll try and identify where people kind of fall on this range of different grooves in the course. Okay, so we're going to come back to this later, but just familiarize yourself with this. And remember, not every turn has a proper way to do the turn. Okay, so in any different gate all over the course, you could use any number of different extremes of this turn, whether it be all the way out here by the green, all the way inside below the blue, or right down the gut. So we'll come back to this. Up next was Adam Zampa. He comes down 2.94 out. If you want an example of somebody who's skiing out of control, this run for Zampa was out of control. He never had his balance, but he did keep fighting and just kept charging down the course, even though his feet were bouncing and he was chattering and there was no good clean edge pressure anywhere, and he was literally out of control. Next after him, Eric Reed. He had the lead and was clean going over the big roll and then made a big mistake after that and lost it all. Eric Reed was really having one. There was some good skiing going on, and when he made the move over the big roll, I thought he had it. But turns out there were a lot of really challenging turns below that to the finish line, and he blew it through there. So it was a bummer for Eric Reed on the day, 25th, not his best result. After him, Lucas Braithen, a young guy from Norway. He is fantastic. He had a really good run, ends up 11th on the day. Good, solid run. Not his best, a little bit chattery. But the visibility was bad, and he's a young guy, and he's learning and gaining experience. Loic Meillard was next, and Loic Meillard went out and threw down about as professional of a run as you possibly could throw down. He just did what he had to do. He settled in. He found his balance point, which is a very dynamic balance point for him. He's got a good long outside leg. And Loic Meillard was running basically right down the gut here, coming clean out the bottom every turn. He didn't make one turn that was an extreme out here or an extreme in here. Everything was vanilla. It was down the middle. And watching it, you would have said, it's okay. It wasn't anything flashy, but it was so professional. He did what he had to do. And if you can be in here, but more importantly, coming out clean every time, you're going to be fast. Loic Meillard was fast. He comes down 21 hundredths up, ends up 7th on the day. Great job. After that, the announcers announced that Bormio is going to be, I got to look this up. Here in the race, they announced that at Bormio, they're adding 2 downhills and a Super G. But here I'm looking at Bormio right now, and there's already a downhill and a Super G scheduled. So are we looking at 3 downhills and 2 Super Gs in Bormio? That sounds crazy. We'll see. Up next was Gino Cavanzel. He comes down 69 hundredths out, ends up 17th on the day. But he made a move out there where he got squashed into the back seat. And I don't know how he did it. He must have just lifted the skis just enough so he could maintain a slide with them, but all the while maintained core strength and stayed powering the skis so that he didn't lose his center mass over and to the outside, which is how you blow your knee out. He got squashed out, powered those skis around, stayed with it, and just squatted out the most incredible turn, saved both of his ACLs, and gets a quality result, 17th, with a giant mistake like that. What a move. That's one for the highlight reel, for sure. Up next was Thibaut Favreau. He comes down 0.65 out and sub 16th on the day. The light sucked when he went. That was a tough one for him. There were some moments in there where he looked really, really good, but in the end, he didn't quite have it to be fast top to bottom. After him was Riccardo Tontetti. Now, Riccardo Tontetti is a beautiful skier, and he was skiing awesome up top, okay? And when he's whipping, his hip is engaged, it's on the snow, and it's fluid, and it's just clean and good. Everything looked like it was going right for him until, boom, he's out. He goes over the roll, makes what maybe is a tactical error, didn't anticipate it well enough. I'm not sure what that tactical error was, but he goes over the roll, he's out. I call this classic Tontetti. Okay, every time he's ever totally ripping and having one, there's just a big mistake and he blows it. He's a great skier. I like watching him ski. It's fluid, it's beautiful, but he's just got to clean it up and start putting runs down top to bottom. He goes 28th, but he's got an asterisk because he wasn't within the percentage to get any money from the race. After him was Adam McGrath. He went out on the Tontetti turn, so I was kind of dogging Tontetti in my head. And then Adel goes out in the same role he does. And so, okay, I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass because it was really challenging. And actually, the rest of the way through, Tontetti's role becomes more of an issue for the guys, I think, as the light conditions were deteriorating. As Adel was coming down, however, especially up top, I was thinking to myself how amazing he is at maintaining speed even through a bad turn or a chattery turn. He's got a way of just keeping his momentum going that is very special, and it's why he's able to be fast when he's fast. Today wasn't his day, however, and he moves back to 27th with a giant mistake down bottom, but a learning experience. And just like Braithen, Adel is coming back from injury, so I think that in poor light conditions and difficult snow situation, that's where coming back from an injury kind of affects you more. When the snow gets clean and the visibility is good, I expect Adel to be a top 10 contender, if not a top 5 the whole way through. He's really awesome. After him, Henrik Kristofferson. He was so smooth. He just the whole way down, he was so smooth. And then it was crazy because the announcer showed the replay and he was chattering the whole way. And it's really a testament to his strength, his balance, and his ability to just maintain proper turn shapes. I mean, here's another guy who was kind of just keeping it up in here. He was chattering all the way through. I mean, Kristofferson just and even down here, like a couple of chops here, but his line never left kind of this zone, the sweet spot. So he was able to maintain his momentum and maintain speed all the way down. A good run from Henrik Kristofferson, and he moves all the way up to 5th on the day, which is a fantastic result for him, especially the way he's been struggling. And then he was on the leader's chair, and he's pointing to his bicep, which is duct taped, and he's just kind of patting it. So my comment was, honeys go to hurt arm. Up next, Stefan Brännström. He comes down 0.8 out, moves back to 15th. Decent day for him. After him, Victor Moufat-Jandé. He actually, when he finished, was the fastest in the last 6 gates, which I thought was really cool. He pooched the middle, though. He had some good skiing going on up top. Pooched it in the middle. I think it was after the big rollover. Just pooched some turns. Didn't have it. Regained his speed. Fast to the bottom. Ends up 11th. That's a good result for him in GS. Think back to last year when he was really struggling in GS, and thank goodness his slalom came online last season because that kind of salvaged his season. But it's good to see that his GS is back up to a top 15 caliber, 11th place, even with a pretty bad section through the middle. I like Moufat-Jandé a lot. Next up was Manny Feller. He had one mistake. And the one mistake I thought was going to take him out of it. However, the rest of his run was pretty sick, especially coming over Tontetti's roll. He made some tighty turns up there where he came in with just a little bit of feather, and then he connects to that ski and makes the quickest little arc. And he's got the tightest radius in his slalom turns when he's on fire. And I think in GS he can do the same thing. And kind of the way he was doing it, I want to get a special color out here for him. The way Feller is doing it is he's coming in pretty low on this line here, and there's a little feather coming in here, and then he's snapping a quick one. And so Feather's able to come in low to the rise line, okay? He is patient for the rise line, but he's low to the rise line, kind of on this tighter groove. He is throwing a little bit of a schmear, a little bit of a feather on the way in, but then he's connecting and throwing this tight little turn, okay? About as tight as it gets, and the skis are quick when he does it, and it's totally on purpose. And when he's making those tighty little turns, he is fast. He moves all the way up to 3rd place. It's really good to see Feller back on the podium in GS. I think there were some people counting him out in GS, saying that he wasn't going to do it anymore and that his style was the problem. Perino still has a problem with his hunched over style, but hey, that's Feller's style. Yes, he's had back issues in the past, but he just went 3rd in a World Cup GS, and it's time to start appreciating Feller's style for what it is, as a dynamic, awkward, but dynamic and fast style. Way to go, Feller. Zan Kranjček was up next. He had a 500th advantage of Feller going out of the gate. At the bottom, he was off of Feller by 95 hundredths. And Zan Kranjček was pretty much the opposite of Feller all the way down. Zan was running more of a clean line coming in. There's still a little bit of feather, but more of a clean line. And then he was getting some chatters down here. And basically, Kranjček was below the gate and throwing chatters all the way down the course at the bottom. So if you want to know time-wise what the difference between above the gate and clean completion skiing and kind of, I don't know, coming into the turn wherever and dirty completions, it's about 9/10 on the World Cup, because I think with Zan Kranjček's style, which Perino nailed, totally nailed how good Zan Kranjček's style is and how good of a skier he is, but his pressure, his chatter was below the gate all the way down, and that led to being 9/10 off of Feller, actually a full second off of Feller at the end of the run. So I thought that was a really good kind of insight into what's going on out there on the World Cup. After Kranjček, Alexander Schmid. This is an interesting one. Alexander Schmid is Zan Kranjček with canting. All right, let me explain what I mean by that. Zan Kranjček has almost like an A-frame, where his inside knee, here's his inside knee, is a little up and high compared to his outside leg, which is coming in here, and there's a little bit of an A-frame there. Schmid comes in, and his shins are absolutely parallel and solid, and that position from here into his body is squared up. He's got a good torso. And so you could overlay Zan Kranjček with his almost A-framey style, severe angles, kind of a more driven in inside knee on the outside leg, and Alexander Schmid, who's perfectly parallel. And you could almost make a comparison that if Zan Kranjček squared himself up with canting, Zan Kranjček would ski like that. Okay, Zan doesn't like to ski like that. He likes to ski like this. Schmid likes to ski like this. I think what you're looking at there is kind of a difference in canting and equipment setup. Two different setups, similar results. Schmid does end up 6, only 0.3 ahead of Kranjček, but kind of a cool comparison. If you can watch them back-to-back, Kranjček and Schmid, it's worth taking a look at. And if you've ever wondered what kind of an effect canting could have, take a look at those two racers, and that is what canting could change in your skiing. After Schmid, Luca Dale Perini. Some turns are amazing from him. And he had, in the second run, the same turns he had in the first run. However, he put them in the correct place on the second run. He was fast. He comes down only 7/100ths off of Feller. He goes 4th on the day. That's a great result for Luca Dale Perini. He got below it the last 10 to 15 gates from the finish. Had he not gotten below it down there, though, he could have been on the podium easy. He was actually the fastest on the top section on the first run. I was going through the splits after the race and wondering who beat Odermatt and Ponereau up top, and then I looked and found, and it was Del Perini was the fastest for the first 2 splits on the top for the first run. He's got that kind of speed, doesn't always have the consistency or the tactics all the way down the course to keep him going. He does run a heck of a slide and go. I love it. After Del Perini was Matteo Favre. He comes down. He started with 3,500ths on Feller, but he just didn't have enough intensity on the top of the turn. Now, he is the example of the green line. He came down the whole way with kind of a know-nothing start to his turn, just feathering, and then kind of getting on here. But notice how long his feather was. Okay, he's staying up in here. He's staying clean. He's staying safe with his skiing. A lot of feather and then clean out. But you got to be aggressive. Yeah, you can't just be safe all day. You can't just run the stiv and expect to win a World Cup. You got to be a little more aggressive than this. His feather, both the height and the length of it, was too long for him to be fast out there today. But it was clean and it was safe. And he got across the line, and he ends up 8th on the day. A top 10 result is always good in the World Cup. So, Matteo Favre, not enough intensity. Up next, Filip Zubcic. Now, I was excited after the first run. I thought he was back. His form looked good. He comes out of the gate with almost a 9/10 advantage over Feller. And then he just laid an egg. He really never found his balance and just looked awkward before he went out onto Teddy's roll and really didn't have anything for it. And if you want to go back and see something really special in skiing, watch Zubcic straight line into the finish line. He chucks his ski sideways, and then he's sitting back as he does. He chucks his ski sideways, the hips start going back, and then he locks his hips forward and into the position to come to a start. He didn't have the balance on that whole run. He didn't have his connection through his skis into the snow that you need to be good, that you need to be fast on the World Cup. And then he found it in one hockey stop going into the finish. Watch it again and tell me I'm wrong. He comes in, as he hits that hockey stop, he starts in the back seat, but then as he needs it, he locks himself in where his balance point was. And unfortunately, he figured out where his balance point was in the finish line when it was too late. Alexei Pontero, another professional run out there. Just really good, really solid, top to bottom. I'm not convinced he was out there trying to beat Odermatt. I think he went out there looking to secure a place on the podium Probably a silver. Maybe he gets lucky and Odermatt screws up. But it looked like just a clean, confident, smooth, quality Alexis Poirot run. Great job out there, second place. He certainly is the second best GS skier in the world. Marco Odermatt. Jump switches all day. It's what he does. The announcers talked about it. He practices it. I've got a video from YouTube that I like to watch where he's doing the jump switch back in 2017. So he's been practicing this his whole life. He is better than everybody. Let's look at what a jump switch would look like on the board. He can basically come in wherever he wants up in here, okay? But if he comes in, say right here, he jumps, lands here. Let's get a new color. Let's see. He comes in somewhere around in here, okay? Does his jump, lands about here. His feather's about yay long, and then he's riding. So even the feller who had that nice little tidy start right here, Odermatt is coming in straight with skis here. He's jumping, landing, and then just finding the connection with the skis quickly, making his move that way. I mean, maybe he's coming in, the skis are a little more vertical to the fall line before he connects, but not much. And this is the kind of key to his skiing. He jump switches in and finds this connection, finds a clean ski quickly. He finds it accurately, and he carries a ton of speed across the hill every turn. Best GS skier in the world right now, possibly the best skier in the world right now. Way to go, Marco Odermatt. Congratulations on a great day out there. Award ceremony was fantastic. They held up checks, which I think is a phenomenal addition to the World Cup. I like knowing these guys are making money. Odermatt gets 36,000 either euros or Swiss francs. I don't know what it is. It used to be Swiss francs. Maybe it's euros now. But I'm guessing he just made 40 grand. Way to go, Odermatt. The other Americans. Brian McLaughlin, he was 34th at interval number 1, 7/10 out, and then he's a DNF. Didn't really get to see anything from his run. Bridger Guile, we did get to see stuff from his run. But look at these intervals, 61st, 56, 54, ends up 53rd on the run. You move over to the kind of in-between intervals, 56, 53rd, 52. Just he was never in it. He's losing time in chunks. It wasn't there. My guess is connection to the snow wasn't all the way there. Didn't have his balance point, didn't have his confidence. I'd love to hear from him as to what he thinks about his skiing. There wasn't one particular thing that didn't go well today. There wasn't a big mistake, which is kind of usually the situation with these guys, but just a off day. It's too bad. I still like Bridger Guile skiing. It's dynamic, but he didn't look like he was all the way there today. I don't think he had his balance point. And how do you find your balance point when you don't have a good surface to warm up on? You got to do edge sets. You got to do edge sets, and you got to do pivot slips, and you got to do those little things until you're blue in the face, until you have that surface dialed. And it's got to be a connection between you and your technician. The skis have to be right. You have to be confident. And there's also got to be a lot of trust, and there's got to be a lot of confidence. That's a lot. But Bridger, you can do it. George Steffi, he was 27th at the first interval, 5,600ths out. It's pretty good because he was in the top 30 at the first interval. However, we didn't get to see a turn he made because he DNF'd before the cameras even got to him. Unfortunately, this is kind of the story that I've seen of George Steffi's World Cup career. I know that he just did well in a Europa Cup, and he previously did well some Noriums back here when he was in North America. So I know he can finish runs. He's got to do it in the World Cups. I don't know how many runs he's completed on the World Cup to get a time, but he needs to see some times on the board. That's one thing that River Radames did really well when he was first coming onto the World Cup scene, is he made full runs. And it wasn't always good enough to make the second run, but at least he was putting his runs down, figuring out where he was, and then Perino was talking about how now he's skiing fearless, and he's able to just attack the whole course, which seems to be working for him. But the confidence he built in completing all those runs when he was coming up through the World Cup and kind of bouncing back and forth between World Cup and Junior Worlds and Europa Cups, he was putting runs all the way down top to bottom. George Steffi needs to start putting runs down top to bottom. It needs to start happening. Next up, we have the men's slalom from Val d'Isere. I can't wait for the men's slalom. This will be the first one of the year. I'm super excited. Plan on an entire episode featuring James Takis where we can absolutely geek out on men's slalom. Look forward to that. Ladies Super G is happening right now in St. Moritz. I am planning on combining the 2 Super Gs into one video, doing the 2-run Super G race like I did with the Beaver Creek Super G. That was a huge success. Everybody's talking about it. I can't believe the feedback is so positive. So thanks everybody out there. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Race Recap. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. Keep watching, tell your friends about this, and keep shredding out there.